Fascinating Podcast presents the Tome Travelers.
Well, hi and hello, and this is John with Passion Nerdly Podcasts, and today for Tome Travelers, I am sitting down with Craig from Nerdburger Games. Hi, Craig.
Hi, John. How's it going?
Going really good. Well, I gotta say, it's awesome to have you back on the show. Last time we talked, you had released CAPERS, and we're on the verge of the release for CAPERS Noir.
Yeah, I came around last time when I was begging for money with Kickstarter, and now I'm begging for money again. So, hello again.
Hey, no, it's one of those things where the Kickstarter market for games really has blown up. I actually just did an article on our website for PassionNerdly.com talking about how Kickstarter really has kind of become its own gaming market in a way, that its own sustainable separate market.
Absolutely. I'm going to be at a convention in a few weeks, and I'm on a panel for like the state of gaming today, quote unquote. And I know darn well that's going to be one of the things that we talk about, because Kickstarter and Patreon and
Indiegogo, I guess.
Go, yeah. To a lesser extent, are ways for people to get their game stuff out there that help to bypass some of the more traditional routes that are sometimes difficult for indie people to kind of get their foot in the door. It's only getting stronger. Like every year, there's more and better games. If you can think of a game, there's probably something out there or coming soon to a Kickstarter near you.
I'm really excited about it, because usually you can log on to Kickstarter and find anywhere, like on the crazy months where it's just completely exploding, you can find up to 400 different projects on the Kickstarter board gaming RPG area of Kickstarter alone, just for things that are coming down the pipe.
It's pretty wild.
Since we last talked, you launched your Discord channel as well, which has gotten very popular.
There's a nice little community of people in there, yeah.
And you also had another smaller game that you released.
I released a game called Die Laughing.
Yes.
That happened right before Noir.
Okay.
It's out and it's kind of seeing some sales, and people are starting to really like it.
Obviously, the big one coming up next is you've got a new CAPERS setting that you're coming out with.
It's another supplement kind of in the vein of what I did with CAPERS Noir, which was with Noir, I kind of, like both of them, Noir and the one we're about to talk about, kind of serve as supplements in the form that they provide you with new game stuff, new player options, new powers, new rules expansions, GM tools, all those sorts of things to kind of build out the game. But then also with each of them, I've done I've progressed the storyline of CAPERS forward from the 20s, the core game set in during the Prohibition era. With Noir, it moves to the 40s and becomes sort of a crime noir mystery sort of game with a little bit of a horror element to it. And the new one is called CAPERS Covert, which carries it forward from the 40s to the 60s and is built around all that extra stuff, all that game material, but also building out a setting and kind of a theme where it's like 1960s classic James Bond style super spies and super villains, but with superpowers, because CAPERS is all about criminals and cops with superpowers.
Which I think is an awesome idea. Some of my favorite games, I mean, in the realm of RPGs, if you can group things into styles, I think that my top two are usually superhero and then horror games are right there at the top, but next in line is usually spy-style games. Because honestly, it's a niche that I wish we had more access to, and like Spycraft from Crafty Games, it's one of my favorite games of all time, and so anytime I see that the option for that setting, I get excited.
Yeah, it's one of those that it gets the super spy or the espionage genre gets sort of a treatment in the classical sense, whether it's based in history or whether it's modern day, every so often. Going all the way back to there was a James Bond role-playing game from way back. I want to say the early to mid-'80s maybe. And then every so often it also gets kind of a treatment in another genre where you can have, a spy kind of story that's built like as a kid's game where it's, or it's a spy story that's built kind of in a fantasy setting or, an investigative kind of game, but with the spy angle to it, where the investigation is all about espionage and subterfuge.
Oh, yeah. Well, espionage as a subject itself is really a very broad term because it can go from the things like James Bond and things of that nature, but you can even go into realms, in my opinion, of things like the Ocean's 11 and things like that, because a lot of the same skills, a lot of the same themes seem to cross over.
Sure. I mean, your classic heist scenario is often very much kind of in that realm because in order to pull off the heist, you have to learn a lot of information. There's often spying. There may be double crosses. There's something to be said for going up against some greater force, whether it's law enforcement or another criminal, and trying to pull one over on them.
Absolutely.
Which is also a great part of the espionage genre in general, getting the better of somebody. That's a smarminess, if you will, to a lot of your kind of spy. They're really cool, and they, which is certainly kind of a James Bond sort of thing, where he's super suave and sexy, and he knows it. Well, there's always a little bit of a tongue in cheek, like, "Hey, I gotcha."
Well, there's always that other side to the whole spy thing, especially in the James Bond stuff. Is that there's always this almost otherworldly nature to it of here are spies, but you're seeing access into a world of power and wealth and prestige a lot of times that you never, you'd never imagine.
Sure. There's and that's kind of built into CAPERS Covert, where you've gone from the Prohibition era of like it's just about alcohol and gambling and racketeering and so forth, to by the time you get to CAPERS Covert, it's like you're playing. If you're playing criminals, you're playing characters that are out to like dominate a particular technological field, or to take control of a market, or to gain influence with a government. And then the law enforcement characters are seeking to stop that, to keep the wool pulled over the eyes of the populace in general, because the general populace doesn't want to know that there's this massive chess game going on there that where people are toying with their lives. But that's really kind of what these really powerful and influential characters, these very larger than life characters, are doing at their core. If Blofeld gets control of anything, it's going to impact you.
Yeah. Moving into the game setting itself, I mean, we're looking at 1960s era of spies. There's so many things in that theme that kind of always kind of take hold, such as, in a lot of that era, there was always the big bad. There was always the big boss or somebody pulling the strings behind that was like the main enemy or something like that. Does that figure into the game any?
It does to an extent, and also because with the CAPERS games, you can play the law enforcement or you can play the criminal element. And so, if you're playing the criminal element as characters, you could have somebody at the table be sort of the Blofeld, or the Dr. Evil type character, and then you've got somebody else that's kind of the prime hench person, and maybe someone else is the assassin, and you kind of piece a team together that way. Or you could be playing that like this. There's this kind of almost Illuminati-like organization of individuals who are relatively equal in power and on par with one another, who are scheming together. It could be a larger organization where all the characters are kind of like that. If you're playing law enforcement, any direction you want,
Obviously, you are continuing with the same system that you created for CAPERS, moving into CAPERS Covert?
It builds the same system out. It expands some things into like rules for vehicle chases, for car chases, combats while zooming along. There's gadgets. So there's a whole subset of rules that provide some kind of interest, all your kind of classic James Bond style gadgets. The GM side of things, there's a whole backdrop that is set in Las Vegas, because I couldn't resist having all the casinos in the 60s kind of Rat Pack vibe of Las Vegas. But then there's also some shorter write-ups of a number of cities around the world. This is the first time that CAPERS has gone outside the United States, because it's not really, like a James Bond high-end espionage story unless you're going to Rome or Marrakesh or Hong Kong.
Yeah, absolutely.
As part of the story.
Oh, definitely. Those were all classic settings.
I just picked and chose a few. I included London because it's easy. Like, you got to have like an MI6 kind of component if you're going to pay homage to the Bond stories. But then, I dotted them. There's Honolulu's in there, and Hong Kong, and Rio. Oh. There's a bunch of cities that get like a one-page treatment with just like enough information for you to take your characters there and do a thing, and then for the rest of that story, or they kind of go back to Vegas.
I want to play right now and just I want to lair in a volcano.
Everybody wants a volcano lair. I mean,
Why not?
if you play an espionage game, if you're playing the bad guys, at some point you want a lair that's like in a submarine, always on the move, or it's in a volcano, or it's at like the very tip top of a mountain.
Absolutely. So other things I've noticed about the game, obviously, I think you announced it first on your Discord channel, then you announced it on Facebook, and that's where I saw the banner art that you did for this. And the art that you've released, just in that, immediately caught my attention, and it is amazing.
That artwork of the two agents, and it's kind of very orange and yellow and red, that's part of the front cover. Beth Varney did all the art for Capers. She did all of Noir. She's doing all of Covert. I'm going to have her do Capers artwork until I run out of Capers ideas, and she's on board for that. And I love Capers. I love Noir. I really like the artwork in those books. This cover is my favorite cover that will probably stand the test of time too, because you're always kind of like, well, it's your favorite because it's new, right? Yeah. But it's a really beautiful cover, and it's set on a green background and everything, so like the reds and the greens kind of pop, and it's a very colorful, engaging cover.
Oh yeah,
it's got two really cool looking super spies on the front. So
yeah. For me, when I see a cover, having a background in design or anything else, one of the first things I ask myself when I see it is, if I saw that across the room, or if I saw that at a convention hall, would it grab my attention? Would I gravitate towards it? And I gotta say that the colors and everything else on it, I love. That's the kind of cover that if I saw that, I'd be like, hey, what is that? And I'd walk over and pick it up. Yeah,
Beth nailed it. She knew what the color palette was, just kind of in general. And being that it's 60s, like there's a lot of very specific colors. There are colors that are kind of 60s, right? There's like an olive green and a goldenrod and burnt umber kind of color, and so that color scheme and those types of colors kind of permeate the rest of the book as well. So it looks really nice.
Now, one of these things that you have been doing, you have, with the Capers, getting the game out, following up with Capers Noir, and now with Capers Covert, just idea after idea. Do you have any other ideas? I'm just asking in general, do you have any other ideas already where you want to take the setting?
When I decided to do supplements, I figured if I'd made Noir and that did well enough, like if the Kickstarter actually did okay, that I wanted to make more, my plan was to essentially make 3 total. So Noir is number 1, Covert is number 2, and the third one that is in process right now. Actually, I was writing on stuff over the course of the last couple days. That's going to be Capers Off-World, which is going to take the cops and criminals into like a 1920s retro future outer space kind of setting, a la Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers.
Oh, yes.
Kind of stuff. Will also include rules for time travel, and so that then can tie all of the settings together. So you could take your character from one era to the other.
That is awesome. I cannot wait to see these games come up.
Well, that one's in the works. I'm still writing stuff. I've actually gotten contracts out to 2 other writers to help with some stuff. I've contacted 2 more. Beyond that, there's playtesting to be done.
Now, you are still, I think I still saw your stuff this year at Gen Con in the Independent Game Designer booth.
At the Indie Game Developer Network booth, yep. We had a great spot right inside, in row 100, right inside the doors. And the booth in general, just like across all the companies that had product in the booth, did really, really well. So yeah. I'm hopeful that how well the booth did will help to keep us in prime spots in future for future Gen Cons as well.
Absolutely, because y'all were within 100 feet of the Paizo booth right there at that first main door, and I loved it. And that's actually where I met Matthew Orr and got to talk to him about Never Going Home this year.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I blew up.
Oh, yes, it did.
At Gen Con.
Definitely.
Now, For Never Going Home, from Wet Ink Games. As long as I'm here, I'll pimp some other people that I really like. That game is pretty sweet. I wrote an adventure for it back when they did the Kickstarter.
Nice.
As they call it in that World War I Cthulhu-esque game. They had a tremendous Gen Con.
Yeah.
I had a pretty good one, too.
Oh, yeah. No, you definitely have been doing well. And, of course, you got the ENnie that year, didn't you? For, not this last year, but for CAPERS.
Oh, I was nominated. Die Laughing, the chopped up free version of Die Laughing got nominated for an ENnie for Best Free Product. Last year, I won what they call a BAMFC, BAMFC. There's a podcast that is all about supers and superhero stuff, and they do an award for supers-oriented games.
Yeah, that's right.
I got a judge's spotlight for that. And then Capers was also nominated for Best Rules and Best Art for the Indie Groundbreaker. Alas, we did not win, but the two games that beat us in that totally deserved it. So I'm multi-nominated, which I guess I can put on my website. Although I'm also a winner of one award. So
yeah, that's an award not too many other game creators can claim that they've won yet.
I will take it.
Yeah, absolutely. This all said, this is something that has really come around, and something your company and this setting does is the use of cards, playing cards as part of the mechanics.
Playing cards are the entire mechanics. There's not a single die roll in Capers. Yeah.
I was wondering what you feel has really led to this in the indie game scene. I mean, Capers definitely is a strong proponent of that. Never Going Home has added a card element to it. And there was a game that actually got in on not that long ago. That's an up-and-coming game from here in Texas that they also have moved towards using the cards rather than dice entirely as well. And I was wondering, what do you feel kind of has moved towards that?
Well, I think that, playing cards or any other type of cards are never going to supplant dice. Dice are always going to be everywhere in role-playing games. But there's so much stuff out there, and there's so many people that are pushing the boundaries and kind of trying different things, that it's only natural that you get some people that are going to try to do some things with playing cards, because they're a great randomizer. And there are things that playing cards can do that dice can't, which makes them very unique. You can flip a single card, and on that card you have a color, a suit, a pip value, whether it's a face card or not. There's a lot of different information that you can glean from that card. So you can use the cards in a lot of different ways. And then you can play it where you draw hands and play cards out of the hands, or you can just flip cards, or there's other ways of getting cards into play. You can put cards into play and they remain there, and you don't have to, so that you can have that card that remains in play represent something, and it could be used in a certain way later. The deck of cards has a history. As soon as you take that one card out, now the composition of the deck is changed. The dice don't do that. Yeah. When you roll a d20, assuming it's a balanced die, there's a 1 in 20 chance of any given result. If I flip 2 aces out of my deck, I have a significantly less chance of flipping an ace out of that deck to shuffle it up. So there's a lot of interesting things you can do.
And they are fairly universal.
Yeah, you can get them anywhere.
Yeah. The game that I got in on not that long ago was up north in a small town, and the person running it literally had just gone to the gas station and picked up a deck of cards in order to be able to play the game.
It's the kind of that go up is you use D6s, right? Because everybody's got a bunch of 6-sided dice lying around. As soon as you get into the other shapes, well, now people have to have those dice, or they have to go to a hobby store or order them. But playing cards, you can grab them anywhere. I mean, there's games that flip coins. Everybody's got a coin you can flip.
Yeah.
I saw when I was digging around at one point, I can't remember the name of it, but I saw a card that used dominoes, which I thought was really interesting because, again, it's one of those things that, a set of dominoes has specific dominoes in it. And as you play dominoes out of that pile, it's changing the composition of the afterwards.
That would be something. I haven't seen that mechanic yet. I feel like for myself as well, a lot of games and a lot of the bigger companies have kind of moved in towards proprietary dice, where they are now making dice that are specific to their game and their game setting. I'm kind of one of those dice collector kind of people, and I'm kind of sad not to be able to use my dice. And I like a lot of these indie games that are coming out, and they're like, we're just going to use cards right now. So it feels really good to me. It feels kind of like, hey, let's just do something different.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with cards. So I think you're going to, we're not going to ever get inundated with playing card mechanics for role-playing games, but I think we'll continue to see them used either wholly for the mechanics or in conjunction with dice. Like there are a good number of games that playing cards are part of the mechanical system.
Well, so when are you getting started with this Kickstarter? When is that going to be leaping off for you?
The Kickstarter fires up on Tuesday, September 17th. It'll run for 3 weeks until I think it's going to be October 10th. That's like the Thursday of 3 weeks later. And there's backer levels for getting just CAPERS Covert. There's backer levels for getting combinations of books. And then there's like some premium levels to get some interesting things like putting an NPC in the book, or the big one this year, or for this Kickstarter anyway, is a backer tier called henchperson. Mm-hmm. You get like everything that you want, like of all the CAPERS stuff. You can get anything you want, and you can get stuff if you already have it. You can give it away as a gift for all I care. And then you also get your likeness into a 2-page comic in the middle of the book, where you will be a featured henchperson who gets shot or subdued by the super spies in the story.
Nice. Now that
getting your ass kicked by James Bond or something like that.
There's something about that I absolutely love. I've actually backed other games just to get my likeness into the book, so that definitely would do something for me. I'm looking forward to 4. It's only going to be 4 people for that backer level, but I'm looking forward to 4 panels of people going, getting. It'll be like comic book shots of pow and blam, of people getting hit. Now, until this Kickstarter does come out, and then for those listeners who come along after, what are some good locations for people to be able to track you down and your games? Well, you can find the games at drivethroughrpg.com. If you're listening to this in between September 17th and October 10th, don't go there. Go to the Kickstarter, because you can get all the games as either part of a backer tier or as add-ons. But otherwise, you can go to DriveThru. My website is nerdburgergames.com, and there are links there that get you to the Discord, and you can get on a once-a-month mailing list or whatever you want to do as far as finding out more about Nerdburger Games. I'm pretty active on the Discord, so you can always pop in there. Yeah, and I am also at Nerdburger Craig on Twitter, and I'm pretty much active daily on Twitter. Excellent. And, of course, I believe you still have your podcast going as well, don't you? Nerdburger Show is going 6.5 years, going strong. New episode every single Wednesday for 6.5 years. Absolutely. I'm always happy to give a shout-out to fellow podcasters. Yeah, that nerdburgershow.com. It's me and my friend Mike and a rotating group of guests who come in, and we just spend an hour talking about geeky and nerdy and other weird stuff. And it's pretty heavy on humor and just a very conversational, kind of fun time. Every so often we kind of delve a little deeper into something, but it's usually just it's the conversation you would have with your friends kind of hanging out. So hopefully people enjoy listening to us ramble and make jokes. Well, Craig, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Absolutely. Yeah, spread the word. Yeah, thank you so much. And as always, guys, be sure to come on back and check in as we talk to more creators.
Podcast presents the Tome Travelers.